For 3 days, a German shepherd sat unmoving outside a woman's house. Through rain, through night, through silence. At first, she thought he was lost. But when she finally opened her door to follow him, the shocking truth of why he waited there stunned the entire neighborhood. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. It was a quiet morning in the neighborhood, the kind where the sound of birdsong and rustling leaves filled the air. The woman stepped out onto her porch with a cup of coffee in hand, expecting nothing more than an ordinary start to her day. But then she noticed him. Sitting at the edge of her yard was a large German shepherd. His posture was calm, almost regal, as though he had been waiting for her. His amber eyes were locked on her door, unblinking, steady. He didn't bark, didn't move, just sat there with a patience that felt deliberate. At first, she assumed he must be lost. Maybe he had wandered too far from home. Maybe someone would come looking for him soon. She told herself not to worry, that he would eventually move on. Yet, as the hours passed, she kept glancing outside. By evening, he was still there. The sun dipped low, painting the sky orange, and the shepherd remained like a statue guarding her porch. Unease stirred within her. Why her house? Why him? She tried to shake it off, but a strange feeling whispered, this was only the beginning. The next morning, the woman hesitated before pulling back the curtain. Part of her expected the dog to be gone, wandering off to wherever he came from. But when her eyes met the yard, her breath caught. He was still there, sitting in the exact same spot, eyes fixed on her door. By the second day, whispers began among the neighbors. Some paused on their walks, pointing at the dog who refused to leave. Whose is he? They wondered aloud. Why does he stay there? Speculation spread quickly. Maybe he'd been abandoned. Maybe he was guarding something. Maybe he was waiting for an owner who would never return. Rain came that evening, drenching the streets and chilling the air. The woman peeked outside, expecting the shepherd to seek shelter. But even as water soaked his fur, he didn't move. He simply curled into himself, never breaking his watchful gaze at her door. By the third day, her unease had turned into something else, curiosity, mixed with a gnawing sense of responsibility. He wasn't just lingering. He was waiting for her. And with every passing hour, the question grew louder in her heart. What secret was he holding on to? On the fourth morning, she couldn't bear it any longer. She stepped outside with a bowl of water, setting it down carefully on the grass. The shepherd's ears twitched, but he didn't rush toward her. Instead, he waited until she had stepped back before approaching, lapping up the water with quiet desperation. That evening, she placed a plate of leftover food on the porch. He devoured it quickly, then sat back down in the same spot, his eyes never leaving her door. She half expected him to follow her inside, but when she shut the door and peeked out again, he had returned to his post. On the fifth day, she tried, shooing him gently. Go on, boy, go home, she urged, waving her hands. The shepherd stood, walked a few steps away, and for a moment she thought it was over. But within minutes, he circled back, lying down again in the exact same place. Night after night, she found herself drawn to the window, staring at his silhouette. Under the porch light, it was as though he was guarding her house, or waiting for her to make a choice she didn't yet understand. By the sixth day, the woman no longer saw the shepherd as a stranger. Each morning, when she opened her curtains, there he was, waiting faithfully. She began speaking to him through the window, her voice soft, testing the waters of a connection she couldn't explain. When she finally stepped outside and whispered, "Hey, boy," his ears perked instantly. His tail thumped against the grass, not frantic, but steady, like he'd been waiting to hear her voice all along. For the first time, she felt the barrier between them begin to crack. She sat on the porch one evening as the sun set, telling him stories she hadn't told anyone in years. The dog tilted his head, as if listening, his calm eyes reflecting an understanding deeper than words. It was strange, comforting, and unnerving all at once, that she felt safer with him nearby than with most people she knew. And though he still never stepped inside, she noticed something shifting. This wasn't the behavior of a lost dog searching for a home. This was different. He wasn't simply staying. He was choosing her. She just didn't know why not yet. By the seventh morning, the woman awoke to a sound she hadn't heard before. Instead of sitting silently at the gate, the German Shepherd was pawing gently at her front door. The scratches weren't aggressive. They were careful, almost pleading. She froze, heart pounding, realizing he wasn't just waiting anymore. He was asking. She stood on the other side of the door, torn between fear and compassion. Every instinct told her to stay cautious, but another voice whispered that this moment had been building for days. She placed her hand on the doorknob, hesitated, then finally turned it. The door creaked open. The dog stepped back, his amber eyes lifting to meet hers. For a moment, neither moved. Then, without a sound, he turned his head toward the street, pausing as though waiting for her to follow. His body language was clear. He wanted her to see something. Her pulse quickened. Curiosity and dread warred inside her chest, but she couldn't resist. She grabbed her coat, slipped on her shoes, and stepped outside. The shepherd trotted ahead slowly, glancing back every few steps, guiding her toward a truth she never expected to uncover. The shepherd led her down the quiet street, his paws splashing through shallow puddles from the night's rain. She followed, her heart racing, every step heavier with uncertainty. Neighbors peeked from their windows, curious, but no one dared to interfere. It felt as though only she was meant to see where he was leading. He stopped at a narrow alley, tail wagging slowly, and turned back to her as if urging her forward. She hesitated before stepping closer. At first, all she saw was a cardboard box tucked against the wall. Then came the faintest sound, tiny whimpers, soft and desperate. Her breath caught. Kneeling, she lifted the flap of the box, and her eyes filled with tears. Inside were 3 tiny puppies, shivering and weak, their eyes barely open. The shepherd hovered nearby, watching her reaction closely, as though making sure she understood. In that moment, the truth struck her like lightning. He hadn't been waiting for food or shelter. He had been begging for help. Not for himself, but for the family he couldn't protect alone. Her hands trembled as she gathered the frail puppies into her arms. They were cold, their tiny bodies pressed together for warmth, their cries cutting straight through her heart. The German Shepherd hovered close, pacing anxiously until she turned toward her house. Only then did he relax, following closely, his eyes filled with relief. Back home, she laid the puppies in a blanket-lined basket by the fire. The shepherd sat beside them, head bowed protectively, as if thanking her without words. Neighbors, who had once whispered in curiosity, now watched in awe, touched by the story of his patience and loyalty. Days turned into weeks. With warmth, food, and care, the puppies grew stronger, tumbling across the floor in playful joy. And though she had never planned for it, the woman realized she couldn't part with them, or with him. The shepherd had chosen her for a reason. As she stroked his head one evening, she whispered, "You brought them to me, and maybe you brought me something too." Sometimes, she thought, we don't choose dogs. Sometimes they choose us.